Hello, welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I think we should all vogue.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss The Devil Wears Prada, which came out in 2006, directed by David Frankel. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis for The Devil Wears Prada?
Well, the story follows Andy, played by Anne Hathaway, who has just recently secured a job at a fashion magazine called Runway. She is an assistant PA to Miranda Priestley, the head of the magazine, played by Meryl Streep. While Andy is working at this magazine, she starts to notice that she is losing herself and having to live, breathe and die by the fashion industry. But as her relationships start to deteriorate outside of the magazine, we start to question, will Andy realise this before it all goes tits up?
Iain, I'm having horrible flashbacks to a recent memory of a review we did.
Yeah?
You know what it is?
Aliens?
No.
Predator 2?
No.
Mean Girls?
Yes! Oh my god, it's the same movie!
Yeah. I was very worried about it when Gary said about we had to review The Devil Wears Prada, and I was just like, oh, really? Again? I mean, I've got to watch a woman, I suppose, Anne Hathaway, enter into this little clique that I have no connection to and have no wanting to understand at all. And she's obviously going to go through the trials and tribulations of, trying to keep her head above the water, so she doesn't lose her job, but she ends up losing all of her friends and families. And then lo and behold, towards the end, has some kind of lightning bolt strike her in the face to make her realize that this isn't what she wants to be, and she just gives it all up and becomes the perfect person that we expected her to be anyway.
Yeah, this is, as you said, this is a fish out of water story. They're a dime a dozen. I don't have a problem with that per se.
No.
And catty, bitchy women in films can be quite entertaining and quite fun, even though the real counterparts of these people you would have nothing to do with.
Yeah.
I didn't like Mean Girls, but the actual bitchiness and the characterizations of these women in this film, I actually found quite entertaining and often quite funny.
Yeah.
I don't have any interest in the fashion industry whatsoever. The dude abides.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, whatever, you wear whatever you want. And a lot of people, what you wear on the outside is a reflection of who you are on the inside. And the fashion industry is one of those things that goes, this is how you should look. So, and, they're almost shameless in the fact that they don't care who really is wearing their clothes so long as these fashion designers' products are being seen on the best model in the best magazine. And it's kind of sickening, really. But at the same time, it's so superficial.
But at the same time, I agree with a lot of the things you said there. But something that this film kind of taught me was something I'd never thought of before, is the fact that the fashion industry is art.
Yeah,
it's an interpretation and the allowance of getting somebody who has these great ideas. These great big skirts and these flimsy tops and all these crazy different clothes that you'll get. It's their way of being able to design that, make it real and put it out on a stage for people to see, which I realised while watching this film is no different than somebody painting a picture, sticking it in a museum and having thousands of people go and see it and spend money on it. And yeah, like you said, we would never intentionally go out of our way to watch this film or put ourselves in that aspect of the fashion industry to try and understand it. But there are a lot of things in this film, unlike in Mean Girls, that we could relate to. Working in an office, becoming something you always strived not to because you hated it, but then having to bite the bullet and become that to be able to, how do they say it in the film? The job pays the rent.
The jobs that pay the rent.
The jobs that pay the rent.
And that's kind of the attitude that a lot of people go into work. They just go, oh, screw it. I'm here just to make money and go home. and pay my rent. And that can actually be more damaging to you than just kind of accepting it and going, maybe I should study a little bit and understand the background and the knowledge of what goes on behind the scenes.
For sure, yeah. And, you know, the director for this film, as I said, is David Frankel, and he worked on Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
But then he also worked on a whole lot of Sex in the City. And he's only got a few films to his name, like Hope Springs and, more recently, Collateral Beauty.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of themes with his films.
Yeah, they're very romancy, love interest kind of
I'm going to say it.
relationship movies.
I'm going to say it. Chick flicks.
Ah, yeah, that was the word I was
Yeah,
looking for.
you know, not being harsh or anything, but we all know the label, so I'll be the one that says it. It's a chick flick. There's lots of chick flicks, and you know, for me, I was very set to be like, look, you know, I'll watch this with the wife. You know, I'll say to her, yeah, we'll watch it. And actually, when I turned to her and said to her, do you want to watch this with me? She turned around and said no. And I was just like, how come? Well, I only watched it 2 weeks ago and it was all right. And I thought, it's one of those films that you do have to find that niche. You know, not all women are really going to enjoy this film, but those that do have their heart set on working in the fashion industry.
Well, I did think it was interesting that the film only had a $35 million budget, yet in America it grossed $124 million.
Wow.
It was a massive success in America, but you look at the intakes around the world, and even in the UK, it barely managed to make in about $3 million. So it was basically its target audience was Americans, and those are the ones who really brought it up.
Yeah, I'm hearing this, and I want to hear this.
But at the same time, you know, I suppose a lot of people looked at the film like we did and went, I'm not watching it.
Well, I actually, during film school, studied the opening sequence to The Devil Wears Prada because of looking at it in terms of its editing, its pacing, and its introduction to all of your characters. Now, it's very rapid cut, and we're seeing lots of lingerie close-up shots, which is nice eye candy.
Yeah, I can go with that.
And but within the first 5 minutes, you have the film has very creatively and purposefully gave you each of one of these characters, and you know their archetypes almost immediately.
Yes.
I love the fact that when she goes into this office and they get the phone call that Miranda Priestley is on her way in, and the behavioural change, shoes changing, lipstick going on, things being put away, things getting prepared for her arrival. And I'm just like, just watching the freneticness of all of that office space, it was like, that brought me into the film, whereas at first I was just like, you know, I'm trying to not be pulled into the screen.
Yeah.
But that worked really well.
Oh my god. No, no, no!
I got pulled into the screen by Anne Hathaway. I really like Anne Hathaway. You know,
the thing is, she's played the same part in a lot of films.
I was going to ask that. Is she always the nerdy girl next door?
The fish out of water character, yes.
She always is. I mean, she's very attractive, and I'm sure she's very intelligent, but I want to see her as a serial killer. I'd like to see.
She's way too cute and innocent to do that.
And that's the thing. I want to see the dark side of Anne Hathaway come out as an actress, because I am seeing a lot of the fish out water girl next door. She plays it very well. You know, I suppose the only time I ever saw her as a tough badass was Dark Knight Rises. But then even then that wasn't too much because the focus was on Batman and Bane. Putting her up against the Queen, Meryl Streep. If you've seen our Death Becomes a review, you know how much I like Meryl Streep. She is an amazing actress. And, you know, like I said, I was drawn in by Anne Hathaway. Pulled in an even bit further by Emily Blunt, who I know the name, but I can never remember like any...
Oh, really?
Amazing.
Emily Blunt blew me away with her appearance in Edge of Tomorrow or Live, Die, Repeat. And I can't wait for that sequel to finally come out. She was amazing in that film. She was one of the most badass women I've seen in film in ages.
But she looks completely different than what she does in this movie. So that's what threw me off.
But she's still a stone cold hearted bitch in this film.
Yes.
Despite all the glamour.
I hope you know that this is a very difficult job, for which you are totally wrong. And if you mess up, my head is on the chopping block. Now hang that up. Don't just fling it anywhere.
Yeah, and obviously you've got Andy meeting Emily first off. And like you said, when Emily takes that phone call and says Miranda's on her way, the whole place just goes crazy. And you're looking at Andy thinking to yourself, she's not going to survive very long in this place. She looks completely out of place. But obviously the film, you know the cliches, you know she's actually going to work her way in. Then with Meryl Streep delivers her dialogue so brilliantly. She is such an intelligent actress. I couldn't take my eyes off her when she was delivering her lines.
So you don't read Runway?
No.
And before today, you had never heard of me?
No.
And you have no style or sense of fashion?
Well, I think that depends on what you're...
No. That wasn't a question.
Even though there was a tiny voice inside of me telling me to turn it off and man up and play some gun games, I was actually sat there like, no, I want to see Andy beat Miranda. I want to see this turn around. I don't care. I want to see what shoes they're going to be wearing next season.
Yeah, Meryl Streep in this film is fantastic and is the main reason really to ever watch this film for me. As she delivers this presence, she demands your attention.
Yes.
She has this air of confidence around her and she never has to raise her voice. It shows how much in control she is of herself and how much everyone around her, they're under her spell. They know, Miranda doesn't ever have to yell at them, but they know that when she just leans in and says something softly, that you will go and do that job to the best you can do it without even asking questions.
Halfway through the movie, part of me was just like, oh, why? Why does everyone care about Miranda? Why is she like this? She's a complete bitch. She's controlling. A bit like the Andy character. You're looking from the outside in and thinking to yourself, oh, I wouldn't stand for that. I'd give her a punch. I'd walk out. You would do everything to rebel against that authority. I completely understand that. But at the same time, when you are in that zone, and it is your livelihood, much as it is for Miranda's, who's been doing it for, I'm estimating about 30, 40 years. She's been running this magazine, and this magazine is one of the biggest magazines in America. She demands perfection to keep that magazine going, to keep everybody employed, to keep all the fashion designers coming to them, the photographers, the artists, the models, the clothes designers, everything that goes into that one picture has to be perfect so that you're ready to sell the next magazine.
Volley for Gwyneth. But the problem is, with that huge feathered headdress that she's wearing, she looks like she's working the main stage at the Golden Nugget.
Thank you for your time.
Who is that sad little person?
So, being this frumpy, dorky-looking character in this fashion institute, she realizes that it's not the place for her. That it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
And she consoles herself with another co-worker played by Stanley Tucci.
Oh,
who was a surprise. He was a real surprise in this film. I wasn't expecting him to be a likable character at first. But he kind of takes her in under his wing at a distance.
Yeah, well, it was very obvious that the way he helps her initially. I think he comes up to her desk and he's just like, you need to do this and you need to do that. And she's like, really? And he's just like, yeah. So you could see that he was very hinting to say, like,
he's very insulting, just like everybody else is.
Yes.
But at least he offers some course of action that she can take.
Yes, yeah.
Other than, insulting her waistline.
Do you want me to say, poor you? Miranda's picking on you. Poor you, poor Andy. Wake up, 6. She's just doing her job.
And so when she's crying and saying that I can't ever do anything right, Miranda never gives me a thank you. All she does is give me a yelling, even though she never really yells.
Yeah.
And so, we get the transformation scene where Andy is now coming to work and we see her walking in lots of different fashion clothes and designer shoes.
Yeah.
And we see the transformation of the character. I'm like, whoa, this is happening really fast. It's actually within half an hour. She's actually already become a mega bitch.
But it works as well because, like I said, she goes to Stanley Tucci's character Nigel, and she says to him like, yes, Miranda's not treating me right, and he completely just puts her down and says, what do you expect? Do you expect a gold star and a handshake and all that kind of thing for just getting coffee? No, you're not going to get that. And he says to her, you have told us numerous times this is not the place for you, but it is the place for me. And he reiterates the story about when he was younger, growing up with 5 brothers, and how they were all off playing football, and all he wanted to do was check handbags and read fashion magazines under his covers at night.
Let's say a young boy growing up in Rhode Island with 6 brothers, pretending to go to soccer practice when he was really going to sewing class, and reading Runway under the covers at night with a flashlight.
And that's where I realised that Andy, Andy's a really nice character, and she's always trying to help people and things like that. When you put her in her place and tell her to stop crying and wipe away your tears because this job is my life, and if you're not doing it as much as I'm doing it, then you don't belong here.
Because this place, where so many people would die to work, you only deign to work. And you want to know why she doesn't kiss you on the forehead and give you a gold star on your homework at the end of the day.
They say it so many times through the film. 1 million girls would die for your, would kill for your job. So if you're going to have it, you fucking own that job, or give it up because there's somebody else out there waiting for it. And yeah, Andy gets all of her nice clothes, and she's walking around, and you knew it was coming, didn't you? You knew that she was going to get accepted into the fold. You see it by Emily's co-worker, who's just like, oh, you've got nice boots on. And Emily's like, shut up. And you could just tell that Andy's going to unwillingly be put into certain situations which are going to benefit her in the long run, but ultimately that she doesn't want anyway. But you're just crossing those hurdles.
The thing that annoyed me is that, she wants to be a journalist.
Yeah.
And she's written all of these papers and she's won awards.
Yeah.
And so I would think that she would be a lot smarter than her character is actually portrayed.
How do you mean?
As in, being a journalist, you would be well educated in English or in writing.
Yeah.
And yet none of that really comes through. It's just sort of something that she mentions. But it doesn't really feel like it's a part of her character. And the reason that she stays in this job is because she's hoping to make a connection to a journalistic firm or corporation to go and better her career.
Well, yeah, because she knows that, or she's heard that if you work under Miranda Priestley for a year, every doorway will be opened up for you in the future. That nobody will turn you down because you are the best.
And so we're told that that's the reason why she stays in this position, which is grueling and horrible and taxing. And then, of course, we get to see the impact on her social life, her relationship with her family, her friends, and her boyfriend. And, we see all this coming. It's all very predictable.
It's
where,
all so
she's
predictable.
finally having a sit-down meal with her dad, and her phone rings. She's out with her friends, and her phone rings. She's trying to apologise to her boyfriend, and her phone rings. And it's always Miranda saying, this needs to be done. This needs to be done. I want you to do this now.
Please. It's just, I don't know, drizzling. Someone must be getting out. Call Donatella, get her jet.
Oh my God, she's going to murder me.
What does she want you to do? Call the National Guard and have her airlifted out of there?
Of course not. Could I do that?
And and so her relationship's all deteriorating, fall by the wayside, and she's still struggling. Oh, do I still want this job? Should I go and patch things up with my friends and my boyfriend? Oh, I think I'll go to Paris.
Yeah. I was very surprised that they didn't give her friends and family didn't give her more shit. They were very supportive in certain scenes, and where I was actually expecting them to kick off. Like you said, with the boyfriend's birthday that she misses because she has to help Miranda at this dinner because Emily's got a cold, and Miranda, and she's actually worked her way up the ladder a little bit, so Miranda actually wants her there, and she benefits that situation because she remembers a bit of information, but ultimately ends up screwing over Emily. to further herself. She comes back into her apartment with her boyfriend with this tiny cupcake. This tiny cupcake with a candle on it, like it's supposed to be cute. Bitch, bring me a big cake. Like a big chocolate one. Smear it all over yourself. Be like, I'm home.
You know, I didn't really know how to feel about the boyfriend character because, you know, if I had a girlfriend who was a workaholic, who was career driven, I would understand that needs to happen.
Well, he did. In a way.
In only to a point, because if she came back with that cupcake and a candle in it, I would be like, all's forgiven. You know, but at least you came back. You've made some effort. Thank you.
But this is the thing.
It's their selfishness which annoyed me and made me not really care for the boyfriend or the friend's characters.
See, I didn't care for them that much because they weren't in it enough.
Exactly. Yeah, they weren't developed enough.
You know,
at all.
it was like, you know, it's like she finishes work, she goes and meets her boyfriend, and then they're going home, and I'm like, and then before you know it, it's the very next day, and she's going to work again, and I'm just like, you're establishing to me that she's got this loving boyfriend, that's fine, that she stays with, that's fine, and in certain scenes he's not shouting at her, he's trying to be supportive, but he's not there enough for me to, you know, feel emotional for his side. And I'm not feeling emotional enough for Andy because she is the one kind of instigating a lot of these situations. It's like the stuff with Christian, played by Simon Baker. You know, it's just kind of very obvious that he's there to woo her off her feet.
Just so fucking greasy and slimy. I hated him immediately. There's the sequence when Andy goes to her friend's photography exhibition.
Yeah.
And he's just walking around her, circling her like a goddamn predator. And I'm just like, Andy, just knee him in the fucking balls right now, please.
And then he kisses her and her friend sees it. And she tries to justify it to her friend. But you're like, no, we have seen the previous scenes with you in. And yes, you've kept him at arm's length. But he's got something that you kind of want. So he wants something from you, which he is ultimately going to get, and you want something from him. I kept getting put off by his eyebrows. I mean, the guy's got blonde hair, and obviously has blonde eyebrows as well. But it's when they're at that club, and he says to her about, he says to her not to drink the punch because he woke up like 3 days later. He stood there and I'm like, your eyebrows are off-putting. I don't like you. Your eyebrows are off-putting.
Punch. I drank it at James's last party. I woke up in Hoboken wearing nothing but a poncho and a cowboy hat.
It gets annoying because Andy ends up going to Paris with Miranda. And we've heard about this Paris trip since the beginning from Emily saying, I'm the one who goes to Paris. I'm the one who goes to Paris. And I'm thinking, no, you fucking ain't, bitch. Something's going to happen and you're going to get fucked over. She gets hit by a car, which is pretty funny.
Emily?
And Andy ends up going to Paris with Miranda. And lo and behold, while she's there in the city of, I think it's the city of love, is it? Paris? You know, she meets up with Christian. Now, coincidentally, she'd already, at this point, broken up with her boyfriend because he didn't understand where she was coming from and maybe they needed to go on a break because they had nothing in common anymore. I'm like, already? I barely see what you guys do in the apartment anyway. You know, so not much could have changed. Christian woos Andy a little bit with some wine and they start making out in the city. And I'm thinking, we hear Anne Hathaway say to the Christian character, I've only just broken up with Nate 2 days ago, and yet carries on to kiss him. And then she wakes up the next day and they've slept together. I'm thinking, really? Really? Are you really that so far down the rabbit hole that you are going to just change everything about yourself for this new job, which you know you're not going to actually want to keep at the end of it unless you become a full-fledged, stone cold-hearted bitch. Like Miranda, obviously.
Excuse me?
I need to talk to you right away. It's about Japanese police.
And weirdly enough, she gets this, she also garners all this information from Christian about how there's a bit of a hostile takeover at Runway and they're going to force Miranda out, and Christian's going to be the new head photographer or journalist there, and he really wants Andy on board, and she's like, no, I have to go save my friend. And I'm like, but Miranda's not your friend.
Well, they had that sequence earlier in the film where Miranda sat there and she's, got red eyes. And
the divorce sequence.
The divorce sequence, right, where she explains that, she is a career-driven woman and now she's losing perhaps her third or fourth husband because she doesn't have time for them. I did think interesting, there is a deleted scene actually at the party back in New York where her husband turns up shit-faced drunk at the party, starts belittling some of these famous fashion designers, and Andy literally steps in and, saves a catastrophe from occurring.
Yeah.
And Miranda, over her husband's shoulder, whispers, "Thank you," to Andy.
Yeah.
Of course, it was cut because, Miranda doesn't do anything nice or say anything nice to anybody.
This is it with the whole divorce sequence. It's really good. Meryl Streep is amazing in the sequence, showing Miranda's vulnerability
For the
from
only
that
time
side.
in the film.
For the only time. I mean, the only other time we saw it was when Andy accidentally walked upstairs into Miranda's apartment, and you saw the husband and wife argument going on. And when Miranda tells Andy that, she's getting a divorce, it hurts her because she feels bad for her twin daughters, and they've got another father. All the usual kind of tropes that you see with those kind of situations. It's immediately cut off when Andy says, "I'm really sorry. Is there anything you want me to do?" And Miranda just says to her, "Do your job." And that is, like I said, another point where I was like, Miranda might be a bitch, but she's an in control bitch, controlling her world because this is her life. Yes, she may have gone through 2 divorces, but if those husbands can't accept that this is Miranda's world, as difficult it is. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my wife, but if my wife said to me, I'm going to be at the office because I'm keeping food coming on the table, I'd be like, you go right ahead. And I will, when you come home, I'll rub your feet. But her husband doesn't look like he's shy of a few pounds. Walking around in suit and ties in the house. I mean, who does that? Sweats, shorts, and a t-shirt, with a beer in hand like her.
Can't really see Miranda falling for that.
But Andy races to Miranda and she's like, oh, I've got to tell you this information. And Miranda just keeps putting it off. And we've heard from Nigel that he is going to be the new partner for another fashion designer. So he's going to be able to leave Runway.
It's a very sweet scene where he's popping champagne and he's toasting with Andy. And I'm just like, you know what, good on. Like, he's like, he said, I think after, was it 15 or 18 years of being under this immense oppression in the workplace, that he will finally be able to call the shots. He's not going to be the one scrambling around to make sure everything's as it needs to be. And so he's like, you're excited for him. And it's like, maybe you do all this work.
Yes.
And it will pay off.
No, it never does.
That heartbreak when he finds out that he is not getting that job. And, he sat there and he's ready. He's got his speech made.
Yeah.
And Miranda calls out a different name. And he sits there and he's trying to be happy for this other person. Yet you just know it deep inside. He is crushed and he is dying.
Yeah. It's the way he turns to Andy and he says, well, maybe she'll pay me back in the future.
When the time is right, she'll pay me back.
You sure about that?
No. But I hope for the best. I have to.
And you're just like, that is something I can so relate to. A lot more than, like we said, with Mean Girls. I can relate to that of working in one job, busting your ass and breaking your balls and giving everything for that one job just for your boss to go, actually, I'm going to give it to somebody else.
Or promote somebody else, yeah.
But weirdly enough, I mean, do you think that, because, we'd heard about this hostile takeover, and then we find out from Miranda, who tells Andy, that Miranda had known about it for months. And she's putting all this other stuff to remain in charge. Do you think Miranda intentionally kept Nigel underneath him because he is the best worker? There's
Possibly, yeah.
Because there's that meeting sequence, isn't there, where they're all sat around the table and everybody else is kind of getting put down by Miranda. And then Nigel says this one thing and she smiles at him and says, well, at least somebody came here for it and was doing his job. And I'm like, Nigel is the only one who can get away with anything with Miranda.
To an extent, yeah.
Yeah. And so Andy, while sat in the car with Miranda, realizes that she is turning into Miranda. And it's something that she never wanted and never does want to be. And so after they get out of the car at another interview, hotel place thing, Andy just turns around and walks away. And I was very surprised. I thought there was going to be some kind of whole narration and change in character, maybe a blowout, anything. And she doesn't. She just kind of turns away, turns her back on it and just walks, throws her phone into the fountain. And before you know it, she's back home in New York and meeting up with Nate in a restaurant and telling him that obviously she wants to change. He tells her that he's got this new job interview in Boston and he's going for it. And you can kind of see that she's not entirely sure if he's taking her back or not. Which I'm like, Andy, you kind of really need to tell him about Paris. Because if in 9 months' time you have a little blonde baby, your boyfriend's going to be really fucking questioning. Really questioning.
We might be able to figure something out.
But it's all the fixer-up ending, isn't it? It's the happy-go-lucky ending. Andy fixes everything up with her boyfriend, and you don't see it, but I'm assuming she fixed everything up with her other friends as well. She's walking past the runway building, and she rings up Emily, who's obviously still overcoming her car accident injuries, and she tells Emily, "I've got all these outfits from Paris, but I've got nowhere to wear them. I was hoping that you can take them off my hands." And it's so brilliant because she doesn't break bitchy mode once. Emily Blunt, she doesn't. I think there's only that tiny little whisper at the party where she says thank you. But she maintains this bitchiness even on the phone through kind of floods of tears, saying to her, "Well, I'm sure it's in position to I can send somebody to pick it up," and then turns to the other PA, the new PA, and says, "You've got big shoes to fill."
Yeah, it's a nice moment. Like I said, Emily Blunt was, she's not in the film that much, but her presence is definitely felt, and I did enjoy her bitchiness, actually.
Yeah.
You have some very large shoes to fill. Hope you know that.
And it's the same with Miranda. We see Miranda come out of the building at the end, and Andy kind of waves at her, and Miranda just shuns her off, and you're like, well...
But she gets in the car, and you know she's kind of smiling, because we know that she sent her recommendation to this other editor and said that, Andy was the most disappointing personal assistant she's ever had, but you'd be an utter fool not to hire her. It's like, meh.
That's Miranda.
Saying that of all the assistants she's ever had, you were by far her biggest disappointment. And if I don't hire you, I am an idiot.
An interesting bit of trivia is that on the first day of filming, Meryl Streep came up to Anne Hathaway and she said, you were perfect for this role. And that's also the last nice thing I'm going to say to you. And it was until filming was over. And I was like, wow, she kept in character. She was like, I'm not going to break, because if we become buddies and friends, these characters' relationships might suffer for it.
Yeah.
So I thought that's great. I also think it's kind of interesting to point out that this film's budget, most of this film's budget, all went on the designer clothing and items for all of the characters in this film, especially with all of the the fashion parades and outfits and locations that they go to. You can easily see where all the money was spent. Also, I don't know who Gucci and Calvin Klein and all of these top brand names faces are. There's a lot of cameos of all of these famous designers in the film, and I'm like,
yeah. We're lucky if we get Primark.
What about this? much better, dude.
One last bit of trivia for you is that the screenplay for this film was actually made before the book was released.
Wow, really?
And the screenplay originally was a kind of Zoolander-style parody of the fashion industry.
Oh, yeah.
And then when the
That
book
wouldn't work.
became a #1 New York Times bestseller and remained on the bestsellers list the whole year, they aborted that screenplay and then wrote a new one that would reflect the book much more accurately.
Yeah.
Still, the story is kind of, as I've said, we've seen it before, but at least it has interesting characters and it's very entertaining and easy to watch because of its editing, its cinematography, and the music.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a big fan of Madonna's music or, you know, any of the other music that's in the film, but it does fit.
It does. It kind of pulls you into that whole mood. You know, that you're finding very hard to put yourself in. You're finding it very hard to relate to. But once you start breaking that ice and allowing yourself to kind of, I say warmed by Meryl Streep, you're fighting the blizzard of her fucking coldness. But you go over it and you're just like, well, I want to see how it turns out. I was very saying that there's the impossible task that Miranda sets her to get the new Harry Potter book, which hasn't even been released yet. And she's, Andy's running around like mad, but I really wanted her to get that book. And then I was actually I was very happy when she just drops that manuscript on the table and Miranda jumps and he's like, what's this? And Andy's like, oh, that's just a photocopy of the 2 other copies that I've got, which I've already given to your children that are already on the train going off to grandma's, and this is just a spare one just for you to have. And I'm just like, boom! She fucking got you, Miranda. But then you're like, well, that means Miranda's going to hire you and you're going to lose everything. And
Yeah. I got a few memorable moments in the film. Like I said, the intro was very good, setting up all of the characters.
And
quite
the bras.
enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stanley Tucci, when he doesn't get the job, his performance there was really good. And he has lots of light moments of levity throughout the film.
Yeah.
Like when they're in the canteen and he's just bemused at what she's eating compared to what everyone else is eating in this establishment.
It's like at the beginning where he just walks in, he's like, did somebody eat an onion bagel?
Yeah. I love Miranda's blue sweater speech.
Yes.
When she's talking Andy down by just saying, even what you have on has eventually worked its way down from the very top of the fashion industry all the way down all these years later. And even if you don't consciously make a decision about what it is you're going to wear, you still are choosing what you are what you are allowing other people to perceive by what you wear.
Yes.
It was a great speech. I was like, wow, that was it was kind of deep and philosophical as well.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a shame that the film doesn't really explore any of those themes in any depth, but at least it's a good start point to explore the other themes in the film.
Yeah, I mean, if it had gone to that, it would have been. You're looking
It wouldn't
very
have been
much,
a comedy.
Yeah, you're looking very much into the business side of it, which, I mean, who really wants to sit and watch that? But yeah, that speech, Meryl Streep's delivery, I was just like, I throw shit on because I look awesome in everything, but, who's to say that I couldn't be on the runway in Paris, just flaunting it because, that's where it all starts, isn't it?
And it's sort of comical how you think that you've made a choice that exempts you from the fashion industry when in fact you're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room.
And my favourite, I kind of have 2 favourite quotes in the film, but my favourite is when Miranda sat on the sofa and she asks for Andy to go and get something for her, and she says, by all means, move at a glacial pace. You know how much that thrills me. I was like, ooh, I'm going to use that. That was good.
By all means, move at a glacial pace. You know how that thrills me.
I, like Gary, really enjoyed the opening sequence. I was very surprised, to say the least. You're sat down to watch a film about fashion and then panties and bras. And, I'm not trying to be course or anything. This is in the film. It's in the film. You know, I sat there like, am I supposed to be enjoying this? Because I can't take my eyes off the screen. I can't. Oh, look, Anne Hathaway's dressed. Okay, I'm done now. My other favourite scene was Emily needing to go to the loo. You know, she'd already said about to Andy that if you just don't go to the toilet, you do not miss the phone. You do not leave it on voicemail. I mean, she says something about how a girl had sliced her hand open and she'd missed... Miranda had missed some appointment, so the girl was just like instantly dismissed. And so when Andy comes back after getting coffee, Emily's just stood there like, I'm dying, I need to go to the toilet. And that would lead on to the dinner sequence where Emily has said to Andy, you get 15 minutes for lunch. And she's in the line and she's getting the chowder, and you meet Stanley Tucci there. And it's just really funny because they say to her later, they're like, you eat carbs. Who eats carbs? You know, I eat like a block of cheese and I still can't lose the weight. Fucking eat more cheese, fuck it. Nigel's speech to Andy, when Andy's saying about how obviously Miranda doesn't treat her right. He just cemented that, yes, from an outside perspective, you may not understand the dedication and the extremes that people will go to for what they enjoy. And if you can't accept that, then you don't really deserve to be there. You know, somebody else is wanting your spot. So either you embrace it and become it, or you give it up for somebody who does enjoy it. Because as you see with Stanley Tucci's character there, you know, he looks like he's fought for his spot all his life. And he finds that people who aren't accepting of it, you know, he'll just dismiss them. I'm hearing a lot of this and not enough of this. That was absolutely brilliant from Emily Blunt. She is a complete bitch in this film, but that just goes with her acting credibility. She was just so good. And her hand movements when she was ill, I need to use that. I'm going to fit that into my life somehow. You know?
Well, apparently Emily Blunt borrowed that from a mother who was having who was dealing with her irate child at the time. And so she saw that while passing by and went, I'm going to borrow that too.
My last favourite scene is the scene with Miranda and Andy in the car after the speech that Miranda has given, which has obviously fucked over a bunch of people. And Andy sat there just listening to Miranda explain about how she knew about all this. And she had gone out of her way to make changes here and there. And it kind of reminded me of Spartacus. The backstabbery. The fact that, you know, Miranda, in her place of power, so many people wanted to remove her. And so she had gone around subtly and quietly and incognito, setting up all these formal dinners just to introduce people to other people, and then turn to the guy who actually owns the magazine with a list of names going, all those people would leave if I go. So are you prepared for your magazine to just drop? And obviously he's not. He's like, she's got me by the balls. And I'm sat there like, she's not the dragon lady. She's the fucking dragon queen. She owned it. And it just, like I said, cemented Meryl Streep to be an amazing actress.
I mean, what if I don't want to live the way you live?
Oh, don't be ridiculous, Andrea. Everybody wants this. Everybody wants to be us.
This is not really the sort of film I'd recommend, but if you've caught in the right frame of mind, then this is easily past 2 hours.
Yeah.
As it's very slick in its presentation. The production values are there, and it is entertaining. You know, it is a typical fish out of water story, which you've seen hundreds of times. But with the great cinematography, the editing, and the whole idea of striving for excellence and the personal sacrifices that you have to make within the workplace and seeing it on screen, it's relatable for a lot of people, despite the fact that, you know, the fashion industry is kind of untangible for a lot of us. It was still an interesting open window to see, you know, maybe what's going on in these sky-rise buildings in New York. Yeah, but it's a glimpse under that veil of superficiality, which I kind of liked. Definitely what I got a lot more of in Mad Men. But yeah, it's a glossy, it's an entertaining film. It's shallow in places.
Yeah.
And the comedy really only works in some places for a comedy film. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, but it's not like it's like we said, it's not like it's Zoolander or fucking any Ben Stiller, Adam Sandler kind of comedy. It has its serious moments, which if you're kind of involved in the story that's going on, it will shock you in places because you're like, oh, I didn't actually expect that to happen because I've seen this story so many times that I didn't think for them to actually change the formula. I, strangely enough, do recommend The Devil Wears Prada, but I think I know the type of people who will be going out to check it out. You know, if you're sat there watching this review like, no, I'm never going near that movie at all, you're kind of like Andy in the story of this, because you're looking at this film and you're thinking, I'm not going to get anything out of that. But if you are a fan of film, if you're a fan of cinema, there are many reasons to watch this. One, Anne Hathaway. Meryl Streep herself said she is perfect. You know, and in a lot of places, yes, she is. I would love to see her change her character in other films, but she was very enjoyable in this. Emily Blunt. Fucking, you know, she acted alongside Tom Cruise and made him look like a bit of a dick. She can certainly act alongside Anne Hathaway and look fucking bitchy. Stanley Tucci. That guy, Gary.
It's not that guy.
It's not that guy. But that Stanley Tucci is just so awesome. His characters are always memorable. And Meryl Streep. Oh my God, the Queen. You know, she fucking just owns the scenes. You'll look into this film and be like, okay, I don't understand anything of the fashion industry. You don't really need to. You know, but it's going to be so cliche and I'm going to know what's going to happen. Yes, you are. But it's the way it's delivered to you, the way it's explained to you, the way that, yes, 2 hours can go at a breakneck pace, that by the end of the film you're like, that wasn't bad.
Yeah, I never found the film boring.
Yeah, that wasn't bad. I've seen worse. I have. You know, and so if you don't want to watch Devil Wears Prada, you know, don't argue with me. Don't shout at me. Don't complain at me. You know, I know you're not the type of person to watch it. But I'm not going to turn to the people who do enjoy this film and say, oh, you shouldn't watch that. I'm going to say they understand it. They get it. There are parts in the film that they enjoy as well. And so at the same time, if you've got a girl, you know, wife, girlfriend, lesbian lover, I don't know, you know, if you've got a partner, who likes this type of thing, take the time out to get the film and say, yeah, I've got some popcorn, bottle of wine, sit down, I'll rub your feet while you watch the film, and then we'll see what happens after.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
By all means, move at a glacial pace. You know how that thrills me.